Hey everybody, we're back again, and it's Monday. Time for another movie.
Yep.
Yay!
This is a pretty good one. I liked it. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, I actually bought Tom this movie for Valentine's Day, like
Yeah.
among other movies, because you kind of always like The Crow because you always talk about The Crow because of Detroit and everything like that, and I was like, oh, the same guy, Alex Proyas, wrote and directed this. There was a couple other writers on it too, and I was like, you might dig it. It's kind of noir, it's kind of sci-fi, and I had seen it a couple times and I remember really liking it, so I bought it for him just on the off chance that he would be into it.
Yeah. It broke my 10-15 minute rule, really.
Well, I have something to say about that, but
Yeah.
expound upon that for a minute.
Okay, yeah. Usually if a movie doesn't include me in the story, in other words, it hasn't pulled me in or it hasn't really said anything to me to make me interested in it, or in the first 10-15 minutes, then chances are I'm never going to really hook up with that movie. I might as well just get rid of it and stop watching it. This one was slow at the beginning. Well, it wasn't slow. It was just that I knew the story that I was being told wasn't really taking place in a normal reality. It was more like a comic book type movie. But I wasn't being included in what the gimmick was, you know. It took a lot longer, about 20-30 minutes, maybe a half hour, before it all started to make sense, which I think that was a little too long. Now, this was what we were watching the director's cut.
Yeah, because I had already seen the theatrical cut.
Yeah, I'd never seen either one, so probably the theatrical cut, it wasn't like that.
Well, what I will note, I saw the theatrical cut like a long time ago, but one of the things, and it's just funny that you mentioned, because even after we watched it, because you got into it probably about 25-30 minutes in, once you realized what was going on. Like I said, this is gonna have spoilers because this movie is like impossible to talk about if you don't have spoilers. But if you haven't seen it, like, I would recommend going into it not knowing. But see, Tom thought, he's like, I think I would have liked it better if I knew what was going on going in. Now, interestingly, the theatrical cut had, much like David Lynch's Dune, opening narration by Kiefer Sutherland's character, who explained what was going on, essentially, so you were already like clued into that. But see, the director did not like that, and a lot of other people didn't like that either, because they said, well, that takes all the mystery away, like, from the beginning. It seems like most of the people that are into this movie like it better without the opening narration, because they like watching and being like, what's going on? Like, it's really mysterious, because you don't know for a really long time until the reveal about a third of the way through.
For me, in a situation like that, it's a mystery. I don't know what's going on, but I start getting annoyed.
Right. See, I wasn't. I was just, because, watching it this time, it's hard for me to say, because it was the director's cut. I had forgotten about the narration, because I hadn't seen this in a long time. The director's cut doesn't have that. And I prefer that, because I like just, like, watching a movie, and I like it to take me on a journey. I don't want it to, like, just say, oh, this is what's going on. I'm like, yeah, I'll figure that out myself. Like, I think it's condescending. So I like it without the narration, but some people like it better with. I did read a couple of reviews where they were comparing the two, and a couple reviews said, yeah, they did kind of like the narration at the beginning, but I don't know. Like I said, if you don't know what's going on, it does take a while for it to be revealed, but to me, I just liked the mystery behind it, because the mystery was so intriguing that I'm just kind of like, what in the actual fuck is, like, going on here? But I can see the other way too. I like it without the narration.
It's a movie kind of like a predecessor to The Matrix and maybe Vivarium. The characters that you're seeing and their lives are not taking place in a real Earth or a real city. They're actually in the captives of some aliens who are erasing their memories.
Spoiler alert.
And watching what they're doing over and over again, and studying them. And they're not even on Earth. They're in a spacecraft in space, and so once you start getting it, and then some of the people, their memories are basically erased. I think every time they go to sleep, right?
Well, they don't. That's the thing. They don't. So that's like the big reveal, is that everybody that's in this city of just eternal night is a captive, essentially, of these alien beings, which we'll get into in a little bit. And the alien beings are experimenting on them and fucking around with their memories and imprinting new memories into people and switching people's memories around and stuff like that, because they're looking for, I guess, like the seat of the human soul, or they're trying to determine what makes humans individual from one another.
Yeah.
Because their race are like a hive mind.
Yeah.
And they are dying out. And so they think that by discovering the secret, the spark of what makes someone an individual or makes someone human, they'll be able to save their race. So they've been... So, but the thing is that every night, like, I think they say every 12 hours, they don't do it to everybody, like, every 12 hours, though. They just go around and do it to specific people, just as, like, well, we want to know blah-de-blah, so let's take this person and change them into this, and let's take this person. But they don't do every single person, because there's, like, it looks like there's hundreds of thousands of people in the city. So I guess they just do it to a select few, and they just figure out whatever it is they want to know in particular. So the main character in this, whose name is, you're led to believe, is John Murdoch. You don't actually know what his real name is. Nobody in this, that's and the movie, if you see it a bunch of times and you kind of think about it from a philosophical point of view, it's actually like it's kind of deep, because they're kind of asking, well, what exactly makes a person human? If you take a person and erase all their former memories and implant someone else's memories so well that they think that that's their memories, it's like, is that even the same person anymore, even though it looks like the same person? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of tackling those kind of issues. So the guy who's kind of the center of the story, Murdoch, he's the subject of an experiment where the aliens wanted to know if you imprinted the memories of someone who was a serial killer, would this person, when they woke up with these imprinted memories, continue being a serial killer, or is there something else in them that would prevent that from happening? You know what I mean? So that's what they were trying to determine in his case. Problem is that when he was being imprinted, he woke up, which they say does happen from time to time, but it's very, very rare. So he woke up in the middle of it, and now he has amnesia because the imprinting was not complete. So he doesn't remember anything, really. Like, he doesn't remember the stuff that they imprinted before. It was just like these fragmented memories. He doesn't remember his wife. He doesn't remember his life before. He doesn't remember anything like that. So the whole thing is kind of him trying to figure out who he is, because he doesn't remember. And also there's cops, you know, the main one being played by John Hurt, or William Hurt rather, who's kind of like, his name is Bumstead, and he's the guy that's coming after him because he thinks he's the serial killer. And then you have these alien beings who are called the Strangers, and they are also after him because he woke up in the middle of the imprinting. And it turns out, I don't think they say this outright in the movie, but he somehow, John Murdoch, has, in the history of, I guess, however long the aliens have been doing this, which they don't really say, he's the only human that has developed the process that the Strangers call tuning, which is basically being able to control everything, like just with your will, like telekinesis, but like on steroids. You know what I mean?
In this weird, it's kind of like Neo in the Matrix, where he could do things. It's like that because they're not in a real world. I think it's physical, but it's being controlled by some kind of a technology. I mean, they can make buildings vanish and reappear and grow. They can make things grow, you know, like a building just could come out of the ground, you know.
Yeah, they just move shit around.
Yeah, they can move shit around, rearrange the inside of the city.
And I think the implication, too, was that this lab that they created, which was kind of like, I guess it was like a space station.
Yeah, it was a big spaceship. They were living on it.
It seemed like a big...
It was huge.
You don't find that out until the end, but it's like a big space station. It was like this big city. And they created it from, I believe they say, like fragments of just all human memories.
Yeah.
So the production design, this movie is beautiful, by the way. Like the production design, like the art design, everything, it's fucking gorgeous. And what they did specifically in the design of the city, which was all built on sets, and some of it was miniatures, some of it CGI, which holds up reasonably well. This came out in 1998. You know, some of it toward the end is a little bit, but you know, it's dark, so it kind of just works. But they used architectural details from several different eras because they wanted the place to not look like any specific place, but also kind of look like a specific place. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they use kind of stuff from like, this kind of looks like New York City, and that kind of looks like London, and that kind of looks like Mumbai, and that, you know what I mean? So they kind of did that kind of stuff. And another thing that I actually hadn't noticed the first time I watched this, until I saw this other person like talking about a review of it, they said everything that's in there, like the shops and stuff, none of them have like identities. They don't have names. It's like if it's a barbershop, it's just called barbershop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's a restaurant, it just says food automat. It doesn't it doesn't have like a name. It's not called like Winkies or anything like that. Yeah, which was a David Lynch reference if you didn't catch that. But yeah, so they're just going to show too, and I think too like the names that the aliens have, because the aliens that you see in the movie, who all look like it's just a whole bunch of super pale, bald people. Seems like it's all men, but maybe there were some women in there too. I didn't notice.
With the aliens?
Yeah.
No, they were all the same size.
I think they were. I think they were all men. But they're
boys.
Yeah, like men. Yeah, because there's a couple kids sprinkled in there too. But they so they all look alike. They kind of, somebody said they kind of look like Pinhead, but without the pins. So they kind of look like Cenobites a little bit because they have that kind of outfit on. But that was very 90s zeitgeist type kind of thing.
Yeah, they're just taking an image. They're just taking a human form too. That's not the way they really look.
Yeah, the way they really look is they're these little tentacle jellyfishy looking things, but they live in the brains, because I think at some point, Mr. Hand, who's kind of the main stranger, he says that they occupy the bodies of human corpses. So that's not, so those are all dead people. So there's like essentially like zombies, but their true forms are like these little tentacle jelly. They kind of look like jellyfish or starfish or something like that, but they like live in the brains.
Sandworm from Dune with a bunch of tentacles on it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that too, but like little.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like gooey, and they, because you see, one of them, and kind of one of the first things that's a reveal is that when John Murdoch's character, when he's running away from some of the strangers, and he ends up like kind of beating them up or whatever, or like fighting them, and that's when he kind of discovers that he can do this telekinetic shit like they can do. And one of the strangers, Mr. Quick is his name, he gets the back of his head chopped off by like part of a billboard, and you see like these tentacles like coming out of the back of his head, at which point, because up to this point you don't know that the guys are aliens or anything like that, so you're just like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? The first time you see it, you're just kind of like, what the hell is going on? Because at first, if you don't see the version with the narration that spoils outright that they're aliens, like from the first couple of minutes, then if you just watch the director's cut for the first 15-20 minutes, it just seems like a weird noir, you know what I mean? Because the director's cut literally starts with John Murdoch waking up in a bathtub full of water in a like grungy looking hotel room, and he doesn't remember who he is, and then he goes in the other room and there's a dead prostitute, and she has like these spirals like cut into her torso, and he's like, well, I clearly didn't do that, like he doesn't remember doing that. And so, then you have like, there's a phone call like comes into the hotel room, and it's Kiefer Sutherland's character who plays a doctor, like a psychiatrist type character, and he's basically like, you know, they did an experiment on you, you don't remember anything, like they're gonna be coming after you, you need to get the fuck out of there. And so from there, like the whole mystery starts to unfold. And like I said, it goes like a noir until you find out that the strangers are aliens. And you also find out that Kiefer Sutherland, who is a person, he's a human, but he's working with the strangers. Not willingly, they kind of forced him. But what he's doing is, because obviously the aliens didn't understand how human memory worked, or like how the human quote unquote soul worked or anything like that, so they needed a person like on their side that was like a scientist that would be able to manufacture memories for them that would translate to real seeming memories in the people that they imprinted. So they kind of made him get on board with the whole program, and he's, at first, you don't actually know at first if he can be trusted or not, because you find out that he is working with them, but then later you find out that he was actually only working with them under duress, and that they made him erase all of his own memories. And he was actually the last human that remembered where the rest of the humans came from. Because you're led to presume that these aliens kidnapped the humans from Earth at some point, right? But nobody remembers it anymore because they've scrambled everyone's memories so much that nobody, like, from, you know, everybody, what they do, like the strangers, is that every 12 hours, like, the sun never comes up because the aliens don't like sunlight and they don't like water. So it's always dark, hence Dark City. So it's always nighttime. But see, people are only, you know, that every 12 hours, the strangers make everybody fall asleep and they put them into this, and then they go and kind of scramble some people's memories and fuck with people and change the city. But see, nobody realizes. They wake up and they're just like, oh, they think that's the way it's always been. Yeah. So nobody really realizes. Yes, they don't notice. It's like, oh, well, it hasn't been daytime like in ever, and
it's unclear if these people have ever been on Earth. I don't think they have. I think they were in space. And maybe. I don't think there is an Earth anymore. They made no attempts to get into it. They wouldn't know how to get to it anyway.
Yeah, and I kind of like that they left that ambiguous.
Yeah.
Because this is really kind of like, I mean, yeah, if you think about it too much, because I think at some point, Kiefer Sutherland's character, you know, he says, oh, well, we were taken, you know, or we were abducted and, like, brought here or something like that. But he doesn't remember.
That might have not been him. That might have been his distant ancestor.
That's what I mean. And that's what's kind of, like, if you think about this movie really hard, that's what's kind of a mindfuck about it. Because every single character in this movie that's not a stranger, nothing of what they say about their past or anything like that can be trusted. Because none of their memories are real.
Yeah.
And because they've been, like I said, they've been imprinted, they've been screwed up. It's like that person, you know, all of the main characters in this, like none of that is real. None of that is anything that they ever experienced. Like everything is fake. Everything is manufactured.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I kind of feel like right around this era, like late 90s, early 2000s, there was a whole bunch of movies that came out about how reality wasn't real. I mean, obviously The Matrix, which came out a year after this, and was obviously this was an inspiration for that, because I believe the Wachowskis did see this, and this movie was actually supposed to come out earlier. I think it was supposed to come out in late 97, but it got pushed back to like early 1998. So it's, you know, it came out supposed to come out like a lot sooner than The Matrix. So, and it's funny because if you didn't know that this came out first, I can see how some people would be like, oh, it's ripping off The Matrix. I'm like, well, no, not really. Like, if anything, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
This predated the Matrix. And honestly, it's not... It's, I guess, superficially the same.
It's got some similar elements.
Yeah, in the sense that the reality you see isn't real, but it's really taking a completely different approach, I think.
The reality you see isn't real, and the main character has the ability to fucking... basically do magic in that fake reality. Basically what it is. You know, like Neo could dodge bullets. He could fucking punch through a wall. He could do this and that. Well, this guy could do that too. He could control the ship with his mind somehow. They don't really explain it. But he's using his mind to access the abilities of the ship to alter the reality that they're experiencing.
Yeah.
Like move a building or, you know, whatever.
Which kind of leaves another question, because this movie does end on a seemingly happy ending, other than the fact that Jennifer Connelly, who plays his nominal wife in the movie, even though, like I said, nobody's identity is who they are because they've been changed around so many times. So it's like, he's sitting there saying to her, it's like, well, you could be my wife. We might have met a long time ago, or they might have just implanted those memories yesterday, and I just met you yesterday, you know what I mean? But there's like no way of knowing, which is kind of a mindfuck if you think about it, like I said. So, but this ends like on a nominal thing because he ends up with his, you know, powers, which become strengthened through this complicated thing where he gets imprinted with his own memories, but with the doctor in there instructing him, like as though he'd been instructed how to do it his whole life. So so he's able to defeat the strangers, and he's now the only person in this environment that has the power to control the environment. So you're left with, well, we don't actually, it seems like a happy ending because it's like he meets Jennifer Connelly at the end. Her memory's been erased and replaced with new memories. So they don't know each other now. But you're just kind of like, oh, well, they're going to hook back up again and blah, 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 which is kind of like hearkening back to a conversation that they had earlier when he was in jail for the murders where, you know, she said, I don't think an emotion like love could be imprinted. Like, I remember loving you, and I don't think that they could have just imprinted that. Like, I don't think it could have been fake. But so you're led to believe, oh, they're going to fall in love again just like they did before because there's some, you know, fundamental aspect of their personalities that is not changed despite all of the tinkering around with their memories. But there's also an underlying thing of we don't know who John Murdoch really is. He seems like a nice dude, and they kind of play this up at the very beginning when when he wakes up in the bathtub and he's in this room with the dead hooker, but he knocks over a goldfish bowl that has a goldfish in it, and he scoops up the goldfish and puts it in the tub. Like, he saves it. And even, like, the cop says later, it's like, why would a serial killer save a goldfish? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So you're led to believe that he's a good guy. But at the end of the movie, he essentially has godlike power. He's the one that makes the world. He turns the thing and, like, makes the sun come up, and he puts an ocean around it so there's a beach.
Which I think Neil was a ripoff of this guy, if you ask me.
Well, yeah, and I think, and Danny just said that, too, that, said this film and The Matrix proved that movie studio espionage is real because The Matrix totally copied this film.
I think they did, yeah.
Well, honestly, you know that they used some of the sets from this in The Matrix. Like, they purchased them.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
And, like, the rooftop sets, you know, where they were having the fights on the, like, him and Richard O'Brien were fighting on the rooftop. Yeah, they used that for The Matrix as well. Because they shot this in Australia, I think. And they, like I said, they had this huge hangar, and they built, like, all of this stuff in it. Like I said, a lot of it's done with miniatures, like, and the scenes where, like, all the buildings are moving around and, you know, going down and coming up and stuff like that is, like, really cool looking still, I think. My favorite thing about this movie, other than, you know, just the whole vibe of it, is Richard O'Brien. I love Richard O'Brien in this. The hilarious thing is that, so Alex Proyas, the director, I saw part of an interview with him where he was like, well, I was thinking about the look of the strangers, like how he wanted them all to look like these bald, pale, kind of androgynous looking creatures. He's like Riff Raff, you know, from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, make them all look like that. And they're just like, well, why don't you just get Richard O'Brien, who played Riff Raff in the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Why don't you just get him to be in it? So he's like, oh yeah, duh, good idea. So it's like, so when he went to London and asked him if he would be in it, so because he said he came up with that character specifically thinking of Riff Raff.
Yeah, and he doesn't look anything like Riff Raff out of the movie, though.
I always thought Richard O'Brien is a cool looking fucking dude.
Matter of fact, you know, when you see him, Riff Raff in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, he just looks like a fucking creep. You see him in this one, though, he's a very handsome guy.
I always thought he was so cool looking. Yeah. Well, I think, the thing is,
he's got a fucking kind of a gothic look to him, but he's a good looking guy.
And he's just, I mean, his whole performance, he just steals every fucking scene that he's in. And he's just so creepy, and he's just so sinister, because the strangers can kind of float. You know what I mean? So when you see them kind of all together, because they all have the same outfits on, they have these black trench coats and little hats, and they're just kind of floating along like the streets and stuff, and it's like super creepy. But yeah, so he's just got such a great voice, and he's just got such a great presence, and he's really sinister. So like, he's coming in there and Mr. Murdoch and all this other, it's like super super cool. He's like the best thing in this. But everything about this is good. I really like Alex Proyas specifically he wrote the first version of the screenplay, and then it was him and two other writers. One of the other writers, David S. Goyer, was the same guy that wrote Blade, and he also wrote the Dark Knight trilogy movies. So he's a writer on this too. But Alex Proyas, he's like, I wanted something like a noir. So you're kind of like Blade Runner, which is kind of essentially like a noir sci-fi. Yeah. It's kind of like that, but it's a lot more, I don't know, this one's a lot more gothic, it's a lot more mannered, it's a lot more... kind of has a lot of visual style that The Crow had. Yes. Yeah, I mean, and you can kind of...
You can see where the Crow
is. I mean, you know that seeing this, that it's the same director, for sure. Yeah. But what Alex Proyas really wanted, he's like, I wanted something that was like like a noir film, like the Maltese Falcon was like his major thing, and Metropolis, the Fritz Lang movie. It's like that was a big thing. Also, a lot of Terry Gilliam stuff, especially Brazil. He was like that was a big inspiration. Also, yeah. So it's just kind of like, so he had all of these kind of, and he said the original version of the script was actually focused more on the cop, the Bumstead character who William Hurt plays in this. You know, he's like, I had the idea of this cop, and he had the same idea where it was like a noir sci-fi backdrop, but he's like, this cop who, you know, has this murder case or whatever, and it just doesn't make any sense and all this other kind of shit. But he's like, as the script progressed, it started going more and more toward the, you know, the guy that was accused rather than the cop. So the cop, he's still in it, but it's just kind of like, he's not really the main character anymore. Now it's kind of like the guy that was accused of the murder. So yeah, so Jennifer Connelly is in this, like I said. She plays the wife. She's great in it. One of the other changes that they made from the theatrical cut to the director's cut is that in the theatrical cut, because she's a nightclub singer, at least in this iteration of her personality, and she, in the theatrical cut, they overdubbed her voice with someone else, but in the director's cut, that's her voice. Because when I heard her singing them, I'm like, wow, that sounds like her singing, you know what I mean? And it was, but in the original, it was not. So I kind of like that they kind of changed it back. And Kiefer Sutherland in this, I kind of love him in this. He's very, he's being Peter Lorre, essentially.
Yeah.
is what he's doing. But it's interesting because I feel like this was the first movie that he was in that he played this kind of weird character like this. Because normally he played, I mean, he'd been in The Lost Boys and he'd been in Flatliners and he'd been in that. So he was more like a hunky, kind of, not action star necessarily, but
kind of a leading man.
But a leading man, yeah. So in this, he plays this kind of stooped, you know, kind of unhealthy. His face is all fucked up, and he talks real funny, like, you know, kind of.
He doesn't look fucked up though. That's still cute ass.
Well, no, I mean, like his eyes all scarred and everything like that, and he kind of walks like that, like he's all like he's
still
messed
a
up.
box office draw though.
Well, yeah,
girls come to see him.
Yeah. So it's like, so I
it's
feel
not
like
a real convincing fucking. I still saw him as Kiefer Sutherland. He was. It was a great job. You know what I mean? But he's not. It's like a lot of these other fucking characters from this era. They kind of get typecast. You know who that dude is. It's hard for them to become somebody else.
To disappear into a role. And that's not necessarily their fault.
No,
it's just
because they had so much impact in other roles. That's hard for them. But it's a good. He does a real good performance.
I liked him in this.
Yeah, it's good.
But I can see how and honestly, most of the reviews that I read and that I watched thought this was maybe his best performance, and like showed that he had a lot of more range than he had displayed up to this point. Because I believe this might have been right before 24, or had 24 started by 1998.
I don't know.
I can't remember, but it might have started by that point. So maybe he had been typecast in that kind of role too, and so seeing him in this kind of role, but like, you know, like his delivery is very strange, like I said, but he's trying to do
Peter Lorre.
He's trying to channel like Peter Lorre, like from the old noir films. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, now that you said that, I made immediately.
Yeah. And his character is based on a real guy. Like the name of his character, which, what the fuck was it? Now I can't even remember. Dr. Schreiber. Yeah. That was his name.
Now, dudes trying to be other actors, like him trying to do Peter Lorre, that's real common. All right, a lot of fucking great movies have characters that were like that. Like Snake Plissken, all right, done in fucking Escape from New York. That was just Crussell doing Clint Eastwood. He's doing Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And then in fucking Big Trouble in Little China, he's doing John Wayne. You know, it's obvious.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really obvious in Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. But I don't know who John Wayne is, but he's doing John Wayne. But soon as fucking I saw an interview with Kurt Russell. Says, yeah, I just went in there and did Clint Eastwood, really. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right, it's Clint Eastwood. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think, so the character, he even has the same name as the real guy, and it was this German guy that wrote this book. He had like schizophrenia, and he had like some other like nervous disorders, and he wrote this book, like a memoir of my nervous disorders, like back in 1903, and some of the ideas for this movie like came from that book. So Alex Proyas named a character after him. So I'm assuming that maybe Kiefer Sutherland did a little bit of research into that too and kind of used that to inform the character. But I think he's mostly being Peter Lorre. That's kind of what... And like I said, just because this is so noir... Oh, and also, Twilight Zone was a big influence on this. He wanted to be kind of like a Twilight Zone episode. But like I said, it's very much... Particularly the director's cut is very much like a noir for the first, I want to say 20 minutes, before the reveal, like, of the head getting cut off and the tentacles coming out, at which point you're like, oh, this is, I mean, you know that something weird is going on because these dudes, the strangers, like, come in, you know, Murdoch's apartment, and you're like, well, they don't, I mean, they look like people, but they don't look like normal people, you know what I mean?
Well, in the first few minutes of me watching it, I realized I'm not seeing normal reality.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know how, if I was seeing something that was actual, or am I seeing something kind of like Naked Lunch, which is happening in a fever dream. I didn't know how they were coming at me. And then when I realized, oh, they're in a vivarium, basically, and it's the Matrix, and the aliens are, and then it started to make more sense. But I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know if I was supposed to know something was wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's that's what I like about, I think that's why I preferred the director's cut without the narration. Because I like that it eases you into, like I said, there's inherent drama in somebody waking up in a bathtub in a hotel, not remembering how they got there, not remembering who they are, and then there's a dead hooker in the room. Okay, that's a great setup. And then the fact that he's like, look, I don't remember who I am. And then it's like, then he gets a phone call that says, yeah, you lost your memory. We did an experiment and it messed up. And it's just like, there's going to be these dudes that are coming looking for you. And then these creepy looking dudes like come in the fucking shit. It's like, I'm invested. I want to know what's going on. But like I said, it does take a while before the sci-fi element becomes revealed. So I can see how, because like I said, when we were talking about it after we watched the movie, I think Tom didn't really get into it at first because he wasn't sure what was going on. Like, he knew something was weird, but he didn't know.
I was starting to get frustrated.
So you probably would have liked the theatrical version better. Well, and the thing about it, like I said, New Line Cinema released this, and Alex Proyas initially had it without the narration. But, like I said, much like they did to David Lynch and Dune, they said, well, audiences are dumb, and they're not going to know what's going on.
Calling me dumb.
No, I'm just saying, no, they said that's what the studio said.
Yeah.
That it's like, they're not going to know what's going on, so you have to put this... So the narration that Kiefer Sutherland gives, like, way later on in the movie, where he tells them about the strangers and stuff, which happens, like, halfway through the movie or even later, they stuck that at the beginning. So, at the very beginning, you know that these are extraterrestrial beings. They've been around forever, and they're kidnapping people and like experimenting on them because they want to know what their soul is and blah blah blah. And I kind of feel like that ruins it for me. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like it ruins the mystery. I like the build up of the mystery. It's like, oh, we're going in this direction now. But you know, I'm kind of more of a chill out and like let the movie take me on a journey.
I think I probably would have liked the theatrical release first.
Yeah.
And then once I liked it, because I would have liked that probably. And then I probably would have liked the director's cut better. Because I already knew, I've already had the background. Because it left me hanging for too long.
I do feel like, though, this is... Well, see, I didn't think about it because I didn't realize that was going to be... I didn't realize that the director's cut was going to have that difference. And I didn't even remember that there was a narration because it's been such a long time since I saw it. So... If I'd known that, I probably would have started you out on that, and then, you know what I mean, had I done research prior, but we just watched it. So, but this is definitely a movie that...
You want to see it on novice first, and then expert.
Yeah. Well, and you need to watch it a few times, because there's a lot of, like, layers of stuff going on in there that you don't really catch the first time around.
I guarantee you this is one that really you're supposed to watch it twice.
At least.
Yeah.
And most people, because I watched some reviews of this, Oliver did one, like a lot of people have done reviews of this, because I feel like it's a little bit underappreciated. It kind of got, after The Matrix came out a year later and everybody creamed their pants over that. But I think what came out with this one, when this movie came out, it was, one, they didn't know how to market it. They marketed it as a horror movie, which it's... kind of not. I mean, it kind of is. It has horror movie elements for sure. but it's not a straight up horror movie by any stretch of the imagination. So that was one thing. They didn't really know how to market it. And the other thing was that it came out only a couple weeks after fucking Titanic, which was obviously a massive, massive hit and crushed every other movie underfoot for weeks and weeks and weeks, actually months afterward. I remember everybody. That movie was in theaters fucking forever. Like, and people were going to see it multiple times. So this came out and people were like, meh, you know what I mean? It just wasn't. And I think it was a little bit too cerebral, maybe. Like, even with the opening narration, like, I kind of feel like people weren't really down for it. It's, like I said, it's kind of, it's not super deep, but it is kind of like a philosophical examination of identity. Like, what makes a person the person that they are? Is it just a sum of their memories, or is there something else, some indefinable spark or something? Like, and it kind of goes into that a little bit. So, and I don't know if people were really into the whole noir sci-fi mashup. I mean, because Blade Runner, when it came out in the early 80s, that didn't do well either, did it?
No.
Like, people were just kind of like,
what the...
It did. Well, this, I'm going to say this didn't... It says on the Wikipedia page that it was a box office bomb. I would only consider it a bomb if it made less than it cost to make it. This made exactly as much money as it took to make it, which was $27 million.
That's a bomb.
So, yeah. So, I mean, you're supposed to make twice as much at least.
3 times.
Yeah.
It's 3 times. Because they have to pay... What it costs to make it is not what they cost to promote it, and then that's about as much as what it costs to make it. It can't be real. That's just what they say. It's got to be bribery. They're probably bribing people to get the movie in theaters. That's what I'm thinking. And putting fucking commercials up. And then that last 1/3 is the profit. You know what I mean? That's supposed to be like the return on the investment. So it's got to make it at least 3 times. Yeah. And then it's not a bomb.
I mean, because a lot of times
they have to triple their money.
Yeah, a lot of times I've heard twice, but now that they spend so much more on marketing and like and other things surrounding it, like I could see how. I
suspect there's also a lot of shifty shit going on.
Well, sure,
too.
I'm sure there always
money
is.
laundering
in an industry that large. There's bound to be.
Yeah.
So this only made like exactly its much budget back, but happily it seems to have gotten a very strong cult following in the years since, and it's very funny because it's not a huge cult following, I feel like, but it's large enough that anytime somebody brings up how innovative The Matrix was, somebody will come up in the comments, well, actually, Dark City came out at least a year beforehand and explored some of the same themes. I would argue, and I'm going to say, I like this better than The Matrix.
They're just different.
Is that a controversial thing to say?
Well, The Matrix is an action movie, and this really isn't.
No, this is a noir.
Right. So I don't think that can't really compare them.
I guess not.
Yeah, they're not.
I liked The Matrix, but it wasn't. I didn't have. It didn't like fucking. People were just like jizzing their pants over it, and I was just kind of like, yeah, it was all right.
What The Matrix is that they took this concept and turned it into a fucking fast-paced action movie, accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
With no thinking involved, really. And,
yeah.
I know that's gonna make a shit ton of money. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, and this is not to be dismissive because The Matrix is a good movie. It's just that it was like this, like a similar concept to this, but like dumbed down a little bit.
Yeah. Somebody's saying this movie's on par with They Live. No, I don't think it is. I think it's above They Live, just in technical expertise. This movie's more on par with Brazil.
Yeah.
I'd say like Brazil or The Crow. About like that.
Yeah, this is like if you like any like City of Lost Children, if you like that movie, like I reviewed that a little while back, or if you like Brazil, like Terry Gilliam's stuff, or if you like anything, actually even if you liked that Cronenberg movie Existence, which is kind of, that was like virtual reality, because there was a lot of virtual reality movies coming out. This is not virtual reality though, because I kind of feel like The Matrix was like a virtual reality type story, and this isn't exactly that. This is organic. This is aliens that are injecting fake memories into people to see what will happen
in a fake city.
So it's not really virtual reality because it's real. They made it like with a machine. It's just on a it's on a space station essentially. Like they show it at the end, like they pull back, because that's kind of the great thing is that one of the plot threads that's going throughout this is that the main character, Murdoch, he remembers, oh, I grew up at this place called Shell Beach, and he has memories of being on the beach when he was a kid, and there was sun, and there was the ocean, and everything like that. And he's just like, where is that? And as he asks people throughout the film, he's like, yeah, where's Shell Beach? Oh, yeah, I remember that place. Like, I spent my honeymoon there. He's like, yeah, how do you get there? And he's just like, oh, it's just right. Oh, I don't remember where it is. Actually, nobody remembers where it is. And there's like a train station, like a subway, and there's a train that supposedly goes to Shell Beach, but it doesn't stop at any of the stations. And nobody thinks that's weird. So toward the end, when he's getting Bumstead, the cop, on board, because Bumstead's kind of starting to question stuff too, because he's like, when was the last time you remember doing anything during the day? Because Murdoch is the only one that's awake when everyone else is asleep and being tuned. So he's the only one that knows what's going on because he's seen it. So he's trying to tell him, he's like, well, we're going to go find Shell Beach. You know what I mean? Because we want to see if it's real. And so they go through this whole like convoluted journey or whatever. And then they get to this wall that has like a poster, like a billboard of Shell Beach on it. And that's it. It's like the end of the line. And he's just like, oh no. And then they start pounding through the wall that has a poster on it. And it's just space.
Goes out into outer space.
It's just space outside.
And the dude falls out there.
Yeah.
And it kills it. But he sees the city from the outside.
Yeah.
Before he dies.
Yeah. So he's just like, oh, well, I guess everybody was right about it.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole other character, too. There's another cop character who they kind of, like, give him leave from the force because they think he's going crazy, like, conspiracy theory. Because he also woke up during the tuning one time, so he also knows what's going on. And he started, like, ranting about it. It's like, they keep changing our memories around. And it's like, I don't even know who that woman is. She's not my wife. I don't even know. And all this, nobody's who they say they are. Nobody's who they think they are. And they just think he's crazy. But it turns out that he's right. And that was probably, like, the last thought that Bumstead had as he was floating out into space like Major Tom. He's just kind of like, oh, well, I guess the crazy people were right after all. We are just on this big fucking floating thing out in space. But like I said, they never
The floating thing on space is thin. It's like it's the size of a city.
It's like the flat Earth.
It's thin. It's got one side and the other side, and it's orbiting a star. But the thing is that the side that has the city on it, with all the people, and the aliens, is facing away from the sun.
Yeah.
So it's getting sunlight on one side, but not the other. I guess to power it, I guess. But the aliens don't like the sun, so it's dark forever. It's nighttime forever. So the stars they're seeing are there, but they're for all we know, this thing is in the same orbit of where the Earth used to be. Don't know.
That's it's like they don't, but I like that they leave it ambiguous, because like I said, I hate when they over-explain things. This movie does have a lot of exposition in it, but I think the exposition that's in it is necessary. You need to know who these aliens are and stuff like that. Like I said, I kind of prefer the exposition more toward the end, you know, and when you've kind of already figured most of it out on your own instead of just front loading it. Because I don't like being treated like I'm a dummy like that. But it's just kind of like, so it does explain things, but it doesn't over explain things. Like I said, nobody that's lives in this city remembers anything about where they came from. And you're led to assume that nobody in the city is who they originally started as. Because we don't know how long the aliens have been doing this to these people. You know, we don't know how many generations have grown up here, like on this floating city, essentially. And so, you know, how many lives have these people lived? Because I think even Richard O'Brien's character, Mr. Hand, he says at one point that Murdoch has lived many, many lives before. So they've injected him with all kinds of memories. It just happened that he woke up during the time that they were injecting him to be like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to make him a serial killer and see what happens? Yeah. You know what I mean? But like I said, you're led to assume, because of the way that things are set up in the movie, that because he doesn't kill anybody after that. Like, he didn't kill anybody before. The strangers did it. But they wanted to see what would happen if they imprinted him with memories of him doing it, if he would continue to do it. But he didn't continue to do it. But they did screw up the memories, though. But he did still have some of them back, like, later on. Because he said, after he found out that he was wanted for killing, I think it was 6 prostitutes, was what the cops told him. And he actually went with a prostitute to her place to see if he would kill her, I guess. He's like, I just wanted to test myself and see what would happen. And he didn't. But then the strangers came and killed her later. And then they kind of blamed it on him. But he did go there and he didn't kill her. So you're led to believe that he's a good person. But like I said, the ending of the movie could be ambiguous because he's now the only person on this floating city that has godlike powers. He can make anything with his mind because he knows how to tune, just like the aliens did. So he can make reality whatever he wants it to be. So now is everybody just going to be like, well, we don't really like it like this? He's like, well, tough shit. I'm the only person that can do anything. He might go mad with power. You don't know. So that's the sequel, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, they do kind of set it up like he's a decent dude. Tammy says, yeah, having a dead hooker in your motel room is never a good start to your day. Right? I mean, yeah. Speaking from personal experience, maybe. Let's see. Danny says, the 1996 Charlie Sheen film, The Arrival, which is his best film. I don't think I've ever seen that, to be honest. Yeah, Case and Lee said, Matrix 1 is the good movie. The follow-up Matrix movies are all downhill. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, they got worse as they went.
Honestly, I think I only saw the first one. I didn't bother with the other ones. I liked the Matrix when I saw it, because I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. But like I said, I'd already seen Dark City at that point. And, you know, and we've talked about this before. Like, I'd already been, you know, in the goth scene for a long time and stuff like that. So nothing like that was that weird or, like, that different, I guess. So I was just kind of like, yeah, that's pretty good.
I bought them all of them on Blu-ray at a fucking set. Used off eBay for next to nothing. I think I fucking $10 delivered, got all of them, and fucking watched them, and they got worse as they went. The second one was okay, the third one wasn't. I think there might have been a fourth one, huh?
Yeah, how many Matrix movies were
there?
there?
That fourth one we didn't even see.
Well, didn't one come out not too long ago? Because I remember seeing trailers for it like a couple of years back.
Sucked.
Yeah, it seemed like it just kind of. I saw a whole bunch of trailers for it, and then it just kind of like fell off the face of the earth. So it must not have been that great.
No, movies aren't very good anymore. You know, fucking Dune is kicking ass.
I mean, there's still good ones. You just can't. You just gotta look around.
You gotta fucking look around, and it's a lot of independent films are good. If it's good, it kind of goes to fucking Netflix. Although a lot of shit goes to Netflix and is forgotten too.
Well,
like whatever happened to Beverly Hills Cop 4? That's supposed to be coming out soon.
Yeah, I thought that was coming out this year sometime.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, it's just I think. And I've talked about this before. It's just kind of like everybody talks about, oh, you know, all the best movies came out in the 70s or 80s or whatever. But the thing about it is a lot of shit movies came out back then, too. It's just that we only remember the good ones. Yeah. And the thing about it is now I think that problem is amplified because of the just glut of streaming services. And then there's also, you know, the barrier to entry of making movies is like so low now that there's a bajillion fucking movies out there. Yeah. So obviously there's going to be like a large percentage of shit, but I think there's still just as many good movies as there used to be.
There's some fucking rock bottom budget movies that came out that were fucking great.
Oh yeah, and I'm not even saying
remember that fucking horror movie where the people that did the movie commented on our videos thanking us to review it. The one where they were having that weird drug. Remember, it was jumping from one person to the next.
Oh man,
remember that? No special effects at all. It's just kind of a good concept, and people killing each other.
Well, see, I'm always into because that's really where the shit starts. Yeah, the shit starts with a good story.
Just a good story, good
good concept.
It had good humor in it, and it was, but I can't remember the name of it. Man,
I'm sure I'll remember it in a little bit. But
do you remember? You know the one I'm talking about?
I think so. Yeah, but I can't remember the name of it.
The producer and the director fucking thanked us.
For covering the movie.
Yeah.
And we probably just watched it like accidentally because it's like, oh, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it was really good. It was on par with the early classic slasher movie.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I'm not snobby about budget or anything like that. And honestly, to be fair, like the larger budget something is, probably the less likely I am to like it. I mean, there's obviously exceptions to that rule, but you know, I just like something that's like real low budget. If it sounds like a good story and it seems like it's going to be good, and I kind of hear that it's good, then I don't care how.
Just gotta have a good premise.
I don't care how cheap it is. I've seen some movies, and I don't know why I just remembered this one randomly. This came out probably 2016, 2017, something like that. But if you've seen it, it's kind of a mind-bending movie too, like this one was. It was called Coherence. And this movie was shot, I don't remember how much it was, definitely less than $1 million. They shot it in the director's house. and they didn't have a finished script. They basically just had the concept, and then they didn't tell the actors like what was going on. They just said, well, this is what your character's going to do today. They didn't tell them what the whole overarching story was, and it's basically like a split realities type thing. Like there's a whole bunch of like realities going on like right next to each other type situation. And it was just this whole like big, huge cosmic concept, but done on like a fucking minuscule budget, like with a small cast. And it was just, to me, that seemed like a prime example of how you don't need a lot of money if you have a really good idea and a bunch of really good actors. Because you don't need to show a lot of stuff. You know, you can just give people the gist. Like, I got the gist of what was going on. I didn't have to see this big cosmic thing that was happening, you know what I mean? But, you know, just from stuff they were saying, like, they got the point across. And I think that's done really well. So, like I said, if you have a good idea and good actors, you don't need a big, huge budget. Now, like I said, this movie this is kind of small to mid-budget, $27 million for 1999. And I think the budget was well utilized because, as I said, this is a really good-looking movie. It looks almost like, I don't want to say it looks like a comic book, because not quite. It kind of looks like an enhanced noir movie, but like all the shot compositions are gorgeous. Just the whole build of the world is amazing, especially like kind of the stranger's lair, which I guess is like underneath the city, it seemed like, right? It has like that big green clock that kind of looks like it's stained glass or something like that, but doesn't have any numbers on it. And it's just like, then all of them are just standing around and they all like look the same with their white faces, and they just have this really cool, like, just the whole design of it is really, really cool. Interestingly, I think we talked about this before, Roger Ebert fucking loved this movie. He picked this as his favorite movie of 1998. And not only that, but he would, if anybody asked him about, hey, underrated movies or something, because this movie is really underrated, he would suggest this one. And they even got him to do a commentary for the DVD release. Okay. When it came out in 2008, like when they did the director's cut. So because he loved this movie that much, he thought this was like super inventive, and it like kind of went into all these philosophical questions, and he was just sad that it didn't do better at the box office because, you know, he just thought it was like a really great movie. And just like, you know, 1998 was no slouch in terms of movies, so for him to pick this as his number one for the year,
that's a mosquito.
It is, yeah. Oh shit.
Oh, I'm gonna try to kill it.
Don't. Oh no. Oh, did you get it?
I think so. Because that'll bite. You have to kill that before.
Yeah. Let's see. Zach says, oh, it's Zach's birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday, Zach. Happy early birthday. We're not gonna be on tomorrow, but we'll wish you happy birthday tonight. I hope you have a good one. Go to the
Zach is gonna be old enough to be gay.
Go to the gay bar.
Old enough before.
And have fun.
Too young to be gay.
Zach said they're making a sequel to It Follows. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I loved It Follows. I thought that was a great fucking movie. But I don't know if it needs a sequel necessarily. Like, what more are they gonna... It's a great concept, but I'm not really sure what more you can do with it that's not gonna ruin it, you know? Case and Lee also says... It's talking about, as far as mind-bending movies, Run, Lola, Run. Oh, that's another one. I love that movie. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Oh, that's a really good movie. You might like that one. Maybe. It's hard to say. I really liked it. I think I saw that in the theater, actually. Danny says, the director of this film could give Tim Burton a run for his money. Yeah, pretty much. And like I said, they kind of run in the same circles, I guess, because, you know, you had the Batman writer and everything for this. This guy also did... He not only did The Crow, but he also did I, Robot with Will Smith.
I actually liked that movie.
Which... Yeah,
I like that movie. I don't give a shit.
I didn't.
I liked it. It was just a dumb action movie, you know.
And I think a lot of people were pissed, too, because it wasn't anything like the source material.
Just an action movie.
But see, that's the dumb thing. It's like, I always kind of feel like I know why they do it, because, hey...
Cash grab.
Yeah, because everybody is familiar with it. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people are familiar with Isaac Asimov story. So they're just kind of like, oh, we're going to make a version of that. But then, like, let's make it nothing like the book. So it's like, all right,
Yeah, like
So just call it something else then.
Like Planet of the Apes, and that was nothing like the book.
No,
they
it
made
wasn't.
a shit ton of movies. I think 4 movies. Now, actually, they made a total of about 6 of those Planet of the Apes movies now. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 or 7 of them. And it's, so, they know what they're doing. They can make money off of it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's
the original book, some French author, that I read the book, too.
I did, too.
And I was just like, man, this is pretty fucking lame.
It's completely different.
It's completely different. Yeah, it was lame.
I mean, not completely different. I mean, the general outline is similar, but the resolution is not anything.
It was an allegory for a bunch of French politics that it didn't translate into to America. So I didn't know exactly what he was getting at. So you just kind of stuck with the superficial story. You don't really know the allegory.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. But I talked a little bit because I've done a few things on my other channel where I compared books and movies, and I said, well, there comes a point where why did you even buy the rights to the book, for example, if you were just going to change everything about it? So it's like not even an adaptation anymore.
You want the cred from the book,
I guess, but I'm like, this is nothing the same.
Just like Omega Man, all right? Omega Man was ripping off,
but at least they called it something different.
They called it something different, right?
They didn't name it the same as the book,
right?
I mean, yeah, it said it was based on that book, but it didn't call it that,
right?
So I don't have an issue in that regard. Because it let it stand on its own merits. It wasn't being like, hey, how much you love that Richard Matheson novel. Well, this is not really like that, but kind of in the same vein, But they didn't call it the same thing. So I didn't really have a problem with that. But if you call it the same thing, and you're saying based on the novel by so-and-so, and you change so much about it that it's like not even the same fucking story anymore, then probably you should just change the title.
A lot of this shit wouldn't work today anyway. Fucking... If what's happening in theaters is any indication, but Hollywood has failed to capture the younger audience. It's when you look at blockbusters, it's because not even blockbusters, they barely have those anymore. It's because older people are going to see them. It's because young people don't give a shit about movies. They grew up watching tablets and phones, and movies are not their thing. You know what I mean? For the social media is. So I'm not sure the movie will ever come back like it was. I don't think it'll ever go away, but they just won't be these big money makers like they used to be. Video games will be doing that. They're doing that now. Video games are kicking the shit out of Hollywood. If you look at fucking just dollar for dollar. But it's just 2 different forms of entertainment, 2 different forms of art. But eventually movies are going to go the way of, say, like epic poetry. It'd be like that. They'll be there, but they just...
I mean, I'd be happy if they just went... If they didn't worry so much about we have to make a $350 million movie.
Yeah, that's the big problem.
Just make a regular-ass movie.
That's the big problem. The big problem is that they're trying to make a $1 billion movie.
I don't need to see all that.
Those days are kind of gone.
I just want to see a good story. Just like I want to read a good novel. It's just kind of the same thing. I don't need all the bells and whistles,
What would make more sense for Hollywood is to do series, kind of like Netflix series. But just you come out with a new fucking movie in a series every month. That would work. A badass 2-hour.
Hulu kind of does that, but they're not all related.
What's that?
I said Hulu kind of does that, but they're not necessarily all related. They just have a new horror movie come out
every
month
for theaters.
Called Into the Dark.
You know what I mean? They ought to do that for theaters. But the thing is I think Hollywood is too used to heavy profits. But the old school of Hollywood's going to have to be gotten rid of. You know what I mean? Those people they're going to age out. And then the people that are in there now are going to have to age out. It's going to be a newer generation coming in there that doesn't quite have aspirations to become movie stars and be billionaires. It ain't, what I mean? It ain't going to happen anymore.
Well, I mean, if they put out like less expensive but better product, but just made more of those,
like A24.
Yeah, instead of just making this one big tentpole movie that costs like $300 million that you have to make all this money back, you're already in the hole.
When me and Jen had A-list for AMC, which we don't have it anymore because there's not enough movies coming out.
Well, and the theater is kind of far away now,
the theater is kind of far away now. But fucking really, A24 consistently had the better products. So they were low budget movies, but they were pretty good, fun, and they were kind of creative.
Well, they were open to a lot of different genres and styles. It's not, you don't go there. I mean, I know a lot of horror fans like A24 because of Ari Aster and stuff, but they put out a lot of different genres.
Yeah. A24 does pretty good.
And they're consistently like
they're
really
at least
quality
okay.
films.
Yeah, they're at least okay. Most of them are good. And a few of them were very, very good. But I like the way they do it. They're just making a lot of stuff, and it's not real pretentious. They're not real expensive movies, but there's just kind of a good experience seeing them. Pretty good.
Danny says, Zach says, by the way, you guys should review that 70s movie, Network. I rewatched it the other day and forgot how great it was. Yeah, that is a great movie. And I haven't seen it in a really long time, so probably we should do a revisit on that one of these days. Case and Lee says, I watched Dancer in the Dark when I was very young. I'm sorry. It gave me depression like 2 days. Damn amazing movie starring Bjork, the singer. Yeah. That movie is a giant bummer. It's a great movie, though. But man, you're going to feel like shit for a couple days after that. It's one of the most depressing things I've ever seen. Danny says, I just saw a pretty great 1973 made-for-TV horror film called The Norless Tapes, free on YouTube. Funny you should say that because I did a video about that. I either did it on Flickers of Fear or I might have done it over on my Scare Salon channel. But I have watched and reviewed that, I'm going to say fairly recently, but I lose track of time. So it could very well have been 2 years ago for all I know.
Yeah, Case and Lee, Omega Man was a horror movie. It's, I think, in 1973 or 74, around that time. What's the guy's name?
Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston.
Or Cheston, as we like to call him.
Yeah, Cheston. He's the Cheston. The Hest. Charlton Heston is in it. It's a post-apocalyptic movie about a guy who survived the damn biological warfare. And it's just him. He's the last normal human being. And a bunch of mutated humans that are albino psychopaths running around trying to kill him. And he's in his home trying to defend himself. It's Colonel Neville. All right. It is based on a book called
I Am Legend by Richard Matheson.
It was and it was originally
which came
about
out in the 50s.
The book was about a guy. He was the last mortal man on Earth, and everybody else was vampires.
Yeah.
He was going around killing them while they were asleep, and from their point of view, he was the monster.
Yeah.
So, but Omega Man, you should see it. You can rent it.
Now I will note that there have been at this count 3 versions of I Am Legend.
Yeah.
First version came out in the 50s. Right, 50s
Price.
or early 60s, had Vincent Price in it.
Yeah.
It was called The Last Man on Earth.
Yeah.
That's the most accurate to the book. They still changed some stuff, but that's the most similar to the book. Then they did the Omega Man in the 70s, which took a lot of liberties. But
it was its own story.
It's kind of its own story.
Yeah,
it's kind of similar to the book. It kind of, but goes in a lot of different directions.
It's my favorite one.
It's more sci-fi.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
And then they made the one with Will Smith in 2000 and whatever.
Which I hated it at first, but
I didn't like it.
I saw it again later. And it was better than I remembered it. But the thing is that the mutants don't talk, and they've just turned them into zombies, which that was a bad idea.
Yeah, and I didn't like the ending. Like I said, I kind of feel like nobody has made an accurate adaptation of that novel. Like I said, the Vincent Price one is the closest. Yeah. It's fairly close, but I kind of feel like nobody has really captured the whole idea of that novel, which was that he was the monster. Like you thought he was the good guy the whole time, but from the point of view of the world as it was now, he was the monster. He was the one that was going around killing.
That's carried on in the Omega Man too, where Colonel Neville was the last man. You find out there's other people later on, but he's the last human being, and all the fucking mutants see him as a relic of the past that has to go. It was all his fault, basically, that mankind fucking fell, and they became kind of like Antifa, I guess the way, and fucking what do you call them? Fucking Extinction Rebellion. They're kind of like that. They're against all technology. They're trying to kill him because he's using electrical power and guns and shit. And he's living in his old house in L.A. in his own brownstone fucking apartment. And he's got it fucking turned into a fortress. And they try to fucking get him out of there, but he shoots them up with machine guns. And he tries to experiment on them to turn them back into humans. And it's just a good flick, man. Good movie.
I mean, it's a classic for a reason.
It's a classic, yeah.
I love the book though. Actually, like anything, I'll read anything Richard Matheson writes, and that dude wrote like for a lot of TV and stuff like that. Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, like a lot of the best stories on those shows were him.
And if you're a White Zombie fan, the band White Zombie, like on their first album, La Sexorcisto, there's a song on there called "I Am Legend." That's about I Am Legend and the Omega Man. He's got it mashed in together in the same song. It's good.
Yeah, Joseph says, I like the point in Matheson's novel that you realize you've been rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah, you're rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah, that's what's so fucking great about that novel. And like I said, I think that the Vincent Price version of the movie, The Last Man on Earth, kind of flirted with that idea. You know what I mean? Vincent Price was still a sympathetic character. You still thought of him as a good guy and shit like that. But so nothing has really gone full on the way the book was. But that one's the closest. The other ones, like I said, took a lot of liberties. But, what are you going to do? Let's see. Case and Lee says any movie starring Will Smith is dumb.
Yeah. He's done some okay movies.
He's done some okay movies. Like, I don't necessarily be like, I don't want to see anything that he's in, but I can see what you're saying.
Will Smith's I Am Legend would have been really good had the mutants been fully sentient talking human beings, because there'd be more characters.
They just genericized it is what they did. They made it a generic monster movie.
It turned into a generic zombie movie.
Which it's not. That's not what that story is.
The idea was that you're the last man on Earth and you're the monster now. The world's changed. And
you don't realize it.
Yeah. You think you're fighting for your good. The thing is that you don't fit anymore. Everybody else is one of these vampires.
World has moved on and left you behind, buddy.
Which is kind of an allegory for getting old.
It is kind of, and I think there is like a little bit of that in there.
Yeah, and that's why Cheston was up in his fortress, fucking in his own world, trying to deny what was happening, because the world was moving on without him, and it was destroying his world. They were running around burning down all the libraries and burning shit, destroying stuff, destroying the past. The past is destroyed with the passage of time. It just goes away.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an allegory for age. He's holding on to the past.
Yeah. They do, like I said, they do kind of flirt with the idea from the book in all of the variations of the movie, but none of them have really gone full bore into it, I feel like. Joseph said, have I read Matheson's Western novels, like Journal of the Gun Years? I have not. I don't usually seek out Westerns. It's not usually my genre, but I do really like Richard Matheson, so I might want to give those a look. I have read almost all of his horror stuff, though. It's horror and sci-fi adjacent stuff. All right, so are you ready to wrap it up? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to finish my ham sandwich.
So, he's going to finish.
I got ham cooking down there, too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, getting back to Dark City, if you have not seen this movie, I would really recommend it, especially if you like stuff like Blade Runner or if you like Terry Gilliam or anything like that. I kind of feel like this movie came out, The Matrix came out like a year later, and everybody, had a boner about that. So it's like everyone kind of forgot about this movie, and that's kind of a shame because honestly, I like this better than The Matrix, and maybe you will too. Like I said, if you like something that's kind of sci-fi noir and is a little bit more cerebral, not so much an action movie, then you probably dig this. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. I don't know where it's streaming. I didn't check. I apologize for that because we watched it on Blu-ray because I bought him the Blu-ray for Valentine's Day because he had never seen it, so I wanted him to see it. But yeah, it's really good and you should watch it. And we're gonna wrap it up. Oh, the show Wednesday night, we're doing a paranormal show, which we haven't done in a while. We are actually talking about what did they call it? The Welsh Amityville, otherwise known as the Witch Farm of Hylfanog, I think is how you pronounce it in Welsh. So it's kind of a famous paranormal story from over there from the late 1980s. So somebody recommended it to me a long time ago and it won in the poll. So that's what we're going to be talking about on Wednesday night show. So that should be a lot of fun. I don't think we've done a paranormal one in a while. So yeah, so hopefully you guys can join us for that. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Monday evening, and we will see you again on Wednesday night. Good night.